I'm a little freaked out. Actually, I'm a lot freaked out.
Hey everyone, thank you for coming on and spending a little bit of your Thanksgiving with me for the 5th annual Dead Rabbit Radio Thanksgiving live stream special. It's been 5 years. I can't think of anything else I've kept up for 5 years. But I'm happy to be here for your Thanksgiving, for my Thanksgiving. We got a new setup, so I will be able to upload this to the podcast. Before in the past, the podcast audio has suffered. I still feel bad about our 5th annual, just our 5th annual live stream. It sounds audio. Hey, I had a lot of fun, but the audio was bad. Hey, Leo, how's it going? I'm glad you were able to swing on by. Hope you are having a good Thanksgiving. I wish I had some, turkey themed stuff. I don't even have on, a little turkey hat. But if you're listening to this on the podcast, the set is decorated with Thanksgiving stuff. I have on an awesome Thanksgiving hat. Hey, Johnny Dominguez, thanks for swinging on by for the Thanksgiving live stream. No Context, thanks for swinging on by. I'm glad to see you guys coming on out. You see I have a new addition up here. Hey, Akka. There's probably going to be a lot of names. Man, last night's episode was rough with my mispronunciations. Even for me, I recorded the episode. Hey, moreover, 223, thanks for swinging on by. If you haven't heard last night's episode, part of it takes place in London, and I talk about the times. Because I thought that's how you pronounced it. I also got to apologize. My neighbor just started working on his car, so you might hear some background stuff, or he's blowing leaves or something like that. It's Thanksgiving. Take the day off. My neighbor's a good guy, though. Callum Fraser, things are going good. Thanks for swinging on by. I called it the Times, and because I knew it wasn't pronounced Thames, and then when I was editing, I looked it up. It's called the Thames. But that's just the way things go. Johnny Dominguez says that he grew a mustache for this very occasion. Nice. I wasn't able to really grow facial hair until my 30s. And that's when I got this a little bit of mustache. Before it was just so patchy, so you just gotta keep on going, kids. Eventually you'll hit puberty. It might be in your 30s, but I got some new additions here in the background. I got my teeny tiny ghost book, and right here is my brochure from the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, which there's still a bunch of stuff I want to talk about that happened there. I had a lot of fun doing that. An interesting thing, I'll give you guys a sneak peek. I'll mention it on an actual episode, because I know not everyone pulls up. Here, let's take a look here. Akka said, for real talk, you are being kidnapped by a Bigfoot and an alien and forced to mate with one. I would probably go with the alien. Because I gotta say, a big hairy person just doesn't do it for me. Who knows? I've been accused of being a scaly in the past. Is it a reptilian? But you can also have, humanoid aliens. I got this, sexy gray alien statue right here. You can't... I think there's a little stuff hanging... Should I get it? I'm always loath to move stuff around because it's always falling, but I got a sexy... Yeah, see? Thanks. Thanks, Gravity. Really appreciate it. That's the answer to your question right there. That's the answer to your question right there. Rico and Acapulco. Thanks for swinging on by. Also agreeing that it took until the 30s to get the Fu Manchu. Modius, thanks for sneaking on in. And Modius asked if this is the haunted owl painting. I don't think it's haunted. I don't know if I've ever said it was haunted, but it's pretty cool. It is pretty cool. I got it for $1 at a used art store. Master of Ellipses, thanks for swinging on by. Yeah, I'm glad to be back too. I'm glad you guys are able to join me. No Context Acts. Did I ever watch Unsolved Mysteries back in the day? Absolutely. That was the show. I remember me and my buddy Josh, we would stay up late. We were adults at this point. We were in our 20s and we'd stay up late and we're I hope they don't show a ghost episode. It's so spooky. That was back before streaming. We had to wait for something to come on the air. Rudy Jazz, thanks for swinging on by. Yeah, it's been a while. Rudy Jazz says, happy to see my woolly face. I don't know if that was a trick to make me say the word wool, which apparently I mispronounce. I've also been told recently that I don't say the word goblin right. Goblin. You guys know what I'm talking about. Apparently it's just Goblin, but that doesn't sound right. Goblin. But, yeah, so I don't know if that was just a trick from Rudy to get me to say Wooly. James McLaughlin, thanks for swinging on by. Really, really appreciate it. Nick, thanks for coming out. Dave, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Malam Arcana, happy Thanksgiving. You guys are coming out in force. This is awesome. Gobbling D's nuts. Say, no, I mean, you know what I think part of it, I didn't say that, James said that. One of the things that I think is that I think I get a lot of my pronunciations from rap music, because I'm pretty sure Lil Wayne calls it a goblin. But I'm sure I was saying that my entire life. Maybe they got their pronunciations from me, who knows. Moreover223 says it's been a while since we started. How are you doing on your 90 Days to a Better You challenge? I'm doing really good. Like, if I could pan I might be able to. Here, I'm going to move my webcam. So this is... Okay, let me back up here. It's a clean living room. The table's not clean. Let me get it higher than my table. And the box and the pile of boxes. You're like, Jason, if that's a clean living room, it's clean. That's clean. I gotta take those boxes out. And I was just eating something last night, so I had my box of pepper. That's not what I eat. That's what I put on my food. But I'm doing really good. And moreover, saying they are starting to see results with their 90 Days to a Better You challenge. Yeah, mine was to be more organized. Just to kind of... Really, I didn't want to say clean. I don't want to say clean up because that's too much to say, but kind of want to pick some stuff up. Modius asks, what's with the bling? I got my tiger. I got a new one. This is Blingo. I've had him for a while. I recently got SpongeBob. So, yeah. It's my, that's my midlife crisis. I tell people that I'm spending money on jewelry. Yeah, Rudy, Wooly, apparently it's, I can't even say it right, Wool. I can't even say it right. Mewtwo, thanks for coming out. Happy Turkey Day to you as well. Johnny Dominguez is bringing back memories of Nilbog. Apparently I saw Troll 3. I didn't know it was called Troll 3. It was about, like, Killer Tree. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, Nilbog is Goblin spelled backwards, and that's from probably one of the worst movies ever made, Troll 2, which I saw on accident, and it totally blew my mind. SK, thank you so much. I'm gonna... dang it, why did I got everything ready, but... SK, thank you... What is this? No, I don't want to write on that. But SK, thank you so much for the donation. Really appreciate that. We will get you your shout out in an upcoming episode. SK wrote, thank you for helping me find the shirt. Oh, yeah. Keep struggle for freedom fight. I'm thankful for your work. SK emailed me earlier in the week that shirt that was featured on an episode. I still have mine. It's just the grammar's bad, and it's a picture of a gray alien head and 2 brass knuckle knives, and his dog ate his up. And he's like, dude, how am I ever going to find that shirt again? So he's like, hey, send me an email. Can you give me that link again? And yeah, it's great. It's a fantastic shirt. It's a fantastic shirt. Bix Bungo, thanks for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Photogenic Hunt 42, thanks for swinging on by. Sorry that you have missed previous years, but yeah, thanks for coming on out. Rudy Jazz is also giving a big thumbs up to their 90 Days to a Better You challenge. I hope a lot of you guys take that. It's a lot of fun. Nato Sumi, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Cat Cans, thank you so much for the donation. I'm thankful for 1,000 hours of well-researched, indexed, and delivered stories of the unknown. Thank you for hanging out with us. I'll be in and out. No, that's perfect. That's what I like about the length of this. Oh, I didn't know I could hit those little things. The length of these things, I don't expect anyone to spend the whole time. If you want to, that's awesome. But if you just jump in and out. And then Oracle Relationships finally made it to a live stream. Really appreciate to have you here. Bix Bungo, Troll 2 is Kino. I don't know if it's funny, because it reaches that level, it's so bad, it does become art. It really does. I remember watching it with my sister. We watched it at random. This was before we knew how bad it was, and we're like, what is going on? I would love to do more movie-related stuff, but it's a time thing. I need to start doing the movie nights again. Absolutely. The movie nights again. Connie Chungus, thanks for swinging on by for the Thanksgiving special. James Jones, thanks for coming out. Fabio, thank you, our Italian... Should I dox him? I think we've referenced enough that he sent us enough stories from a particular country. I won't say it out loud again, though, but thanks for swinging on by. Oracle, thank you so much for the donation. You'll get your shout out in a upcoming episode. Happy Turkey Day to my favorite, is Oracle's message. You know what's funny? So there is a bit of a... So, like, when I get new Patreon supporters or people who are going to be mentioned on the show for the first time or not in a long time, I try to make sure they're not in a crazy episode. Like, I have a couple of people that I met from the Port Gamble Ghost Conference that I want to give shout outs to, but I think the first episode was about a guy who, or the second episode was a guy who castrated himself on drugs. I was like, okay, I'm just going to use someone who's been a Patreon supporter for a long time on that one. And the same thing with last night's episode, because it was so dark. I didn't want someone to be like, ooh, finally, an episode of Dead Rap Radio, and I can't even listen to it. So we'll get you in there. Rico in Acapulco, thank you so much for the donation. Happy Thanksgiving. My first episode was the one about baseball as a satanic ritual, and it's been a pleasure ever since. That was a cool one. That one pops up in my... I might do that as a Dead Rabbit Radio recommends, because maybe what do I call them? I call the Retro Rabbits. Now I have to spell Acapulco. That's a crazy one. It's one of those ones that just kind of still like sticks around. The guy who did it, I mean, he had a theory. I don't know how true it is, but you do start to think like why it is a ritual. Yeah, 100% is a ritual in one way or the other. Rudy Jazz says they've been catching up on the episodes and hearing the episode about Dream Jason. One time Rudy Jazz said that they had a dream where I started an OnlyFans. So, no, that never... It's definitely a dream. It's definitely a dream. Johnny Dominguez is posting the corn. Again, a very memorable... I would like to do more movie stuff. That was from Troll 2 as well. I'm like, what in the world is going on with this movie? Mr. L, thank you so much for your donation. Your podcast got me through some stressful times recently. Happy Thanksgiving, Mr. Carpenter. I really appreciate that. I get comments like that, and it makes me feel good because there have been times where I've listened to podcasts, or like when I'm down, I'll just kind of throw on a podcast, listen to it, and it does kind of just lift me up. It's such a personal type of entertainment, so I'm glad I can help you guys out with that. Cat Cans asked, have I watched Hellier? I haven't. I've heard so much about it. Is that a television show? I haven't watched it either way, but no, I've heard a lot about it. And then they also said, Cat Cans Go, there's a podcast called Penny Royal. They're not awesome, but they show just how much paranormal stuff is going on in the most random of places. I can check that out. I can definitely take a look at that. One thing I like about the show we have is, like, who would have thought we'd be finding stuff all over the world like that? You just always kind of read the ghost stories in your area and then the ghost stories in your state, country. We've done a lot of stuff. I have an update too about that Peru face peeling alien story. That's still going on. We covered that last season. It was news for a couple days and it disappeared. It's still happening. The residents of those villages are like, we need help. It's still happening. We're gonna talk about that more in a future episode very quickly, probably next week, because that's weird, right? That's so weird. Catcan says, of course, bringing this one up on Thanksgiving, I use your story of the small cult where the leader makes the members assault each other as well as their own kids to show how absolute power corrupts. You know what's interesting? So I think I talked about this a bit on the episode. I very rarely use this episode contains graphic, disturbing material. Listener discretion is advised. Because if I overused it, then it would become numb to it, and then stuff would catch you off guard. That was one of maybe 5 episodes I used that on, and people still said it wasn't enough. I had to go in and re-record a new warning because people were so disturbed. It was, I think the episode, it might have been called White Power Nebraska. I know that's what it was in my notes for the longest time. It was about a white supremacist who started this cult. It's super brutal. True crime story. And people were emailing me after that and being like, dude, I didn't expect it to be that bad. That's why I put a warning on last night's episode too, because that also involved a kid. But yeah, I don't use those all the time because otherwise it would just be background noise. You wouldn't even think about it. A web series. Okay, that I think this is the Hellier. Yeah, I've heard about that. I've definitely heard of that show. It's so funny. Like, I have a list of stuff I want to watch, and it just keeps growing and growing. I think all of you guys do have that, and then eventually you end up not watching anything. And Idea Guy, thank you so much for your donation. Finally tuned in a month ago, first time in months, while walking at night, and happened to be the one about someone being stalked on a night walk. I don't know if I could listen to the podcast while I was walking at night. Because you don't know. That's the thing. I mean, like, love it or hate it. But Tony Manitoba, thanks for swinging on by. I guess shouldn't say love it or hate it, but you don't know what you're going to get, which I think is a strength and a weakness. Because someone's like, oh, right, I'm going to listen to a cool paranormal story. And it's just like, I didn't want that story. And I think unless it's a funny thing, yeah, so much of it involves people falling prey to these entities, to the supernatural world. It would be spooky. Yeah, people say they listen to it while they're falling asleep. I mean, that's odd. I think it's really cool. I just don't know if I could do that. I remember when I used to read green text on the X board, sometimes they would creep me out, and like I'd be walking to work the next day at 5 a.m, and I'd be like, man, why did I stay up so late reading that spooky stuff? Moreover, 223 mentions the Kasake episode. That was the one. That was the one about the bear. The name in Japanese means diagonal slash. It was about a bear who walked into a town and was just eating people. It was like walking through the walls of their little tiny houses. It was like apparently, like in the culture of Japan, they hate bears, and a lot of it has to do with that story. A massacred town. Moreover says they use the quote, that's why I'm governor almost daily. I don't remember the context of that quote. I don't remember the context of it, but I really like that story. That one, it might be one that I want to listen to and do and what's funny is that when I say I like that story, or I like that episode, generally I'm referring to the story, the content itself. If I listen back to it, my delivery, I'm like, oh, that took too long for that particular part. I could have cut that out. Like, you're your own worst critic, but yeah, that's a good one. Leo says the list becomes a chore in the infamy. Yeah, I have a YouTube watch later list, and it's like some of like the very first video that pops up every single day is this conspiracy theorist talking about how Mike Pence has murdered 42 children personally, and I was like, why haven't I watched this yet? This sounds so fascinating. I remember one night I watched like 5 minutes of it, and he's like, Mike Pence, when he was governor of whatever state he was governor of, he hunted kids in the wilderness. And I was like, dude, this is awesome, but I don't have time to watch it now. I'll put it in my watch. And it's been there for like 2 years. I really need to watch that video. Castro T, thanks for swinging on by to the Thanksgiving live stream. Really, really appreciate it. An Idea Guy says, falling asleep to my voice, just have a nice voice to listen to. I hope so. To me, it sounds a little annoying, but... And that's the thing, when people criticize my voice and they're like, I can't listen to Dead Rabbit Radio, his voice annoys me. I was like, that's fair. I totally understand. Tony Manitoba says, I've been listening since 2019. Always a pleasure to tune into the live streams. That's awesome. You really made a difference in my life. The 90 Days to a Better You challenge. Keep rocking in the free world. I intend to. Justin Mosier says, how many emails do you receive regarding people's personal stories? Not many at all. Most of the emails I get are asking for, and I'm behind in some of my emails. You may go, yeah, you're about to describe one of my emails. I'll get emails asking for advice, like creative advice, starting a podcast, something like that. And I'll get I got a couple of those this week. And then I'll get emails asking for personal theories or things that I think it was Ethan Browning. I'm sorry if I don't remember correctly. A while back, they emailed me and they said, do your belief in the paranormal affect your politics? I thought that was a really interesting question, and I actually recorded a segment on it for the show. It was an interesting question, but once I got done talking about it, it wasn't that interesting to listen to. The answer kind of was no. My conspiratorial beliefs can affect my politics. That's why I'll almost always vote third party. I'm very local election oriented over national election oriented, because I understand there's a power structure in place on a national level. You can have more. Not by any means saying don't vote, but I'm more into the local elections because those affect me directly, and the corruption is easier to expose in a way, and you can kind of see results or lack of results very quickly, as opposed to national politics. A lot of that is just covered up by the media. This massive mechanism that outlasts every president is in place. So I still vote, but a lot of times I wish everyone, this is what I always say, everyone complains that there's only 2 political parties for 3 years, but on year 4 they go, well, there's only 2 choices, so I'm going to vote for one of these 2. Well, if everyone stopped complaining and in year 4 voted for a third party, then we'd have 3 political parties, 4 political parties, major ones. That's usually emails I get. The email I got recently about the tow truck driver, I'm trying to remember that young man's name who sent that to me. I mentioned it in the episode. That was the most recent, personal story that I've gotten. Photogenic Hunt 42 says, you should do more song parodies. That Sexy Bigfoot song had me losing my mind at work. You know what's funny? That came out. I know Rudy was there when I was recording that episode live. I couldn't figure out a way to end that episode. And so I kept trying out different things, and then 10 minutes passed, and I was like, I don't have anything. You're going to have to, I have to go. I can't think of anything. And then I thought of the song and recorded it. Here's the thing. I've toyed with doing that before. There was a song recently. It was so bad. I tried writing it. It was awful. It was so bad. And there's a musical episode that's never been recorded. I talk about it all the time. It's about Max Kramer. He wants to open a theme park. Max Kramer is the crazy homeless guy who wants to cut off your skin and wear it and attack your children. He believes all this stuff. He wrote this big thing online, what would I do if I had $1 million? And he describes in detail this theme park he wants to build. And I've always wanted to do that episode as a Willy Wonka episode, where there's songs in it, but it's so try-hard. I've sat down trying to write the songs and the Oompa Loompa stuff, and it's kind of funny, but it's not funny enough to record and to put out. So that episode, it's called Welcome to Bingleberries. That's the name of the episode. I don't know, and it's never been recorded. I have all the notes. I don't know if it'll ever come out. I do want to cover more Max Kramer stuff, but I also don't want to force the Max Kramer stuff. Moreover says, I've been listening since 2017, sophomore year. Another episode that still sticks to me to this day is Lords of Chaos episode. I love that story. That is a story that I wish did get more press. That was about the group of teenagers in Florida. I think it was back in the 90s. Killed their science teacher, or killed a teacher from their school. And I think, it's not a super popular true crime story. I think part of it, too, is that I think there's a documentary called Lords of Chaos about a death metal band in Northern Europe. I could be wrong. I've never seen that film. And that took a lot away from, now when you look up Lords of Chaos, that was a true crime book I read a decade or 2 ago. I read the book way before the podcast came out. And so when I started doing the podcast, I was like, oh, I gotta cover this Lords of Chaos story. It's fantastic. Plum, thanks for swinging on by. Big love from Italy. Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, so Plum says I need to send you some really crazy paranormal stories. I am not against you guys sending me that stuff. People will often start their emails off saying, hey, I don't know if you take personal paranormal stories. And I do, because really, there's no guarantee that I'm going to cover it. That is the thing. But with what I'm looking for online are all sorts of paranormal or true crime or conspiratorial content. If you have that stuff, definitely email it to me. I'm not going to be like, oh, this email I got from somebody is worse than this anonymous post I found. Send it over. No, I would appreciate it. At the very least, reading it. Totally. James McLaughlin says, what percentage of theories... Watch, I better double check my mic. Okay. James McLaughlin said, what percentage of theories, conspiracies do you actually believe in, and which ones have you found the most convincing or compelling? Giving it a percentage is hard. But I would say, here's the thing, more than the average person. More than the average person, but I think probably on par or maybe less than because most conspiracy theorists, despite what you see in the media, like most conspiracy theorists will have a trove of conspiracies. Like they will be a flat earther. They will believe that the earth is flat, and then connected to that, space is fake, and connected to that, aliens are demons. Those are all kind of exist in the same realm. But then if you started asking them about, was the Titanic sank so the Federal Reserve Bank could be established, I don't know how many of them would buy into financial conspiracy theories or war conspiracy theories, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, stuff like that. I think you kind of stay in your lane as far as that goes. The conspiracy, and I've talked about this before, I did want to recover it because Ice Cube was on the Bill Maher podcast recently, and Ice Cube brought it up. He goes, there's a conspiracy theory, and I don't think he used that term, that the record companies, I covered this a long time ago. This was a long time ago. Record companies promote gangster rap because they're in bed with the private prison industry. That's an old conspiracy theory. I remember reading an article about it years and years and years, again, way before the podcast even came out, about these hip-hop record executives who were brought into a meeting, and they said, the private prison industry is booming, but we need prisoners. So we're going to start elevating gangster rap. We're going to have people be more and more violent in their music, which is going to inspire people to commit crimes. And two of the producers said, we're not going to do that, and they left, and they were warned never to tell anyone. Ice Cube said, listen, you can record your album, you write your songs for sure. He goes, but it is the studio who tells you which songs they are going to promote as far as singles, and it's really the studio as final cut. Like, you might write 16 songs, they're going to pick the 10 on the album. He's self-published at this point. He's been around forever. He owns his own label. But he did mention that so that is conspiracy theory that I think is... I think most conspiracy theories that involve human corruption and money are probably more true than, say, something like space is fake. Because that conspiracy theory would have to have been around for, 100 years. But, I think that would be kind of my thing. If it's something like that, I think the idea of celebrities being replaced by clones is not super viable, but celebrities being replaced by doppelganger, not like lab created, like finding someone who really, really looks like Avril Lavigne, that's more believable because it's so hard to get a hit maker in the first place. It's so hard to break through that when you are able to break through, if something did happen to Avril Lavigne, you could find a girl who looks like her. I think that is more logical. Do they do that? I'm not for sure, but I think that I could see a studio doing that. I could see somebody doing that. Rudy Jazz, thank you so much for the donation. They said they included, is this enough to get you to release the musical episode? Well, it hasn't been recorded. The songs haven't even been written. I talked to my old producer friend who's done the music before about doing some Oompa Loompa music. But, again, like, it's just, it could come off as so cringy. And let me read some more of these comments, but I'm going to remember that. Castro T says, I sent you one of my personal sleepwalking incidents. You haven't replied back. I'm not like I said, I've gotten a couple emails where people are like, hey man, I'm starting a new podcast. Do you have gear information? Or I had another one asking, they had more specific questions about podcasts they want to start. And I'm just not great at replying to emails. I'm sending out a bunch of stickers too. I'm sending out all my stickers next week. I ran out. So I'm not good at mailing stickers out either. But I'll take a look at that, Castro, the sleepwalking. Here, I'll write that down. Because it's... Yeah, I apologize. Let me say that, too. I apologize for not getting back to you. Even though I'm slow, I try to. Let's see here. Johnny Dominguez says, rap an entire episode. That is so... I have sung, technically there's 2 episodes that have songs on them, not including the zombie raps, Dead World and Dead World Part 2. I have the Sexy Sasquatch, and then I have not listened to the song since I've recorded it. I thought it was pretty cool. When I wrote it. I'd probably cringe really bad, but the Book of Enoch, I think, ends in a rap song. It does, right? I didn't edit that out where it's like, yo, I'm the Book of Enoch, and I'm here to say, so the instrumental is still on my iPhone or whatever it is. I have an Android, but I just call it an iPhone for some. I call it an iPod. I listen to my music on it. That song, Walk Back. It's just an instrumental. It's a free use instrumental. Dun dun dun. Dun, 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 dun. I don't remember any of the lyrics. I'm sure it's super cringy. So I don't think I'm gonna rap an entire episode. I don't think that's gonna work. Dirk Groveman, what's up? I haven't seen you pop up in a long time, man. What's up, Jason? Hope your Thanksgiving is going well. I hope yours is going well as well. Yeah, no, I think we're all having fun. Modius says, thinking that aliens are demons before, if we even know that aliens are real or not, is bold. It's interesting. I think we've covered this on the podcast. There's that theory that that's the thing that's stopping disclosure, is there is a core group in the government that believes they're demons. Who knows? Like, again, I think the machination, if you are, and I talked about this before in an episode, if you are a government employee who's worked for the same agency for 40 years, you have more connections and, in a way, more power than someone who's elected for 4. And that's just the truth of the matter. That person who's elected in office has to come to you to get something done. So really, who has the power? And that person, you can go, that person's going to be gone soon anyways. What are the Collins Elite? The Collins Elite, I think, is the name of this group. I actually brought it up at the Port Gamble Ghost Conference. I met a UFO guy, one of the big, he's the master of ceremonies at the UFO festival in Oregon. So yeah, that was really cool. I forgot what his name was. No, I have it written down. No, that wasn't. Michael was a skeptic. Anyways, I got it down. I do want to say, Castro T mentioned that movie They Cloned Tyrone is about. Oh, it is. It's about the cloning, the cloning celebrity. Or he says they kind of glaze over it, but it's kind of mentioned they clone Tyrone. I watched some stuff on Netflix last night. One of them, man, I don't like saying, I'll talk negative about movies all the time in public, but on a podcast, But I watched a movie, and man, it was really good, but they just couldn't stick the landing. Like, everything up to it was really awesome, but yeah, that was on Hulu, actually. In the end, like, they asked so many questions and didn't resolve any of them. I feel like it should have been 90 minutes as well. They could have cut out, since they didn't resolve anything, they could have cut out 30 minutes of questions. Speaking of questions, I found, look at this. You guys are going to go nuts. If you're on the podcast version, I'll describe it to you, but I found this walking, I got to hold it just right. I found this walking home one day. Does this look familiar to anybody? You're answering. Okay, so now it says Slurpee on it. This is an official Cowboy and Aliens cup fashioned after the bracelet. You're like, wait, it's Cowboys and Indians. Slow down, bro. It was that movie starring Daniel Craig, and he had that bracelet on his arm to shoot aliens. I found this in a box of free stuff. So yeah, this cup is probably about 12 years old. Yes, I have washed it out, but isn't... Oh, I haven't even shown you the best part. I can't believe I forgot about that. Watch this. Wait, is it doing it? Oh, man. It doesn't light up anymore. It used to shoot beams out. Maybe I got to change the batteries. It did earlier. Anyways, there's that. I don't know. That was kind of cool. Cool. Bougie Barbie, thanks for coming out. Bougie Barbie says that the Ice Cube theory was ever true. It doesn't make sense now because rap isn't as influential and prisons would have died already. Well, what's interesting, so it doesn't have to be everyone listening to rap music. Because the prisons, they only need so many people to be profitable. The idea, though, was to amp people up and to make crime seem cool. If you really think about it, you had like gangster movies in the 20s, and then you'd have the occasional movie that would make crime look cool, like Scarface or something like that. But if you had people listening constantly to this stuff, like I mentioned yesterday, I thought something was following me. I was listening to Spice One. I'm listening to very violent rap music. And it was making me more anxious in the state I was already in. It is a conspiracy theory, right? There's no proof of this. People have alleged it, but I think that you wouldn't need it to constantly be the number one hit. Because rap music has fallen off, especially in the past couple of years, and gangster rap's fallen off for a while. But nowadays, it's all about like popping Xanax and stuff like that, which will get you thrown in jail if you get caught. No Context asked, Rudy Jazz was talking about my forearms there, so I had to read that comment as well. No Context said, your opinion on the plane lady. I thought that story was said and done, and now she's popped back up in the news. She's kind of doing a podcast tour thing. Super interesting. She's really like, she's very, very attractive woman. I think that's why the story lasted for so long. I think the fact that people couldn't find her afterwards added to the mystery. And she does these podcasts. I don't know how long the interviews are. I don't know what else they talk about, but she's like, I don't really want to talk about that. She doesn't want to talk about the person she was talking about. She goes, I just got a negative vibe. She apologizes. She goes, I didn't mean to be such a weirdo. But it turns out like it doesn't seem like she's crazy, but it also doesn't seem like she saw anything as well. Interesting meme, right? She became a meme and then she actually just kind of went on with her life. So that's interesting as well. Cream Master Cycle, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Always checking your stuff out on TikTok. A perfume expert. I don't know if you'd call yourself an expert. I'd call you an expert. I don't know anything about scents. More of a 223. Have a good Thanksgiving. I know I'm behind on the comments. Did I miss that one? Wow. Okay. Sorry. I'm way behind. Oh, yes, and Justin, I actually was just looking at Justin sent me an email about the gray alien faces, so I was just looking at that one the other day, because I'm looking for new stuff to cover, so yeah, I was going back through that. No, I appreciate it. Crunksta, thanks for popping out. Poor Richard's Farm. My favorite DRR moment was when I was recording the studio and the dog walked by. That sucked. That's his favorite moment. I mean, it was interesting, but you could hear my fear. You could hear my fear in that, and yeah, I don't really record in my closet much anymore. Not because of that. That definitely was a weird moment in Dead Rabbit Radio history. I remember thinking about, should I even include this stuff? Because I'm always like, it kind of might seem like a weird LARP. But yeah, that was bizarre. And then I was still seeing dogs when I was like walking around out of the corner of my eye again. Blitz Neo, thanks for swinging on by. Sublimal, thanks for swinging on by. Latvian fan. Like Latvia? I guess Latvia is a thing. I mean, I know it's a thing, but I didn't know if there was a fan. Actia asked if I seen Severance. Are you talking about the television show? No. I've seen the movie Severance about a group of employees, a group of like business people go out to a team building retreat in the middle of the woods, and they run afoul of wealthy people chasing them, hunting them in the woods. I don't know if that's the one. I don't know if that was a good one. Shane Fitzgerald, haven't listened to the pod in a while, but popped up. Cool to see things are still going strong. Really, really appreciate you swinging on by. Yeah, it's awesome that the podcast is... That's all up to you guys. You guys have been there the whole time, so I really, really appreciate you guys. Blitz Neo says, really enjoyed the new episode. The darker subjects work well with the style of the show. One of my favorites was Baby X. That was a tough one. That was a really creepy one. Yeah, it's finding that balance. And I've said this before. There are people who love true crime tend to enjoy the paranormal. People who love paranormal, they may not like true crime. That hits too close to home sometimes. They don't care about the ghosts and the ghouls, the goblins and all that stuff, but they don't want to hear about Baby X, right? Which I understand. Like, that was something I learned doing the show because I love them both. Let's see here. Camerahead, thank you so much for the donation. Been here from X since episode 500. It's such a long time. Here's more for the future. Thanks a lot, Jason. This also counts for the musical episode. So apparently we all are taking that. We're not... I don't know if there'll be a musical episode. I shouldn't have said that. Grav Una, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for swinging on by. For sure. An idea guy. Yeah, we're talking about the rap music, definitely. And I gotta YouTube, thanks again for the donation. Really, really appreciate it. What are your thoughts on the New World Order Great Reset conspiracy theory and how it relates to aliens taking over the world? You know, that's such a... Take a drink of my Diet Mountain Dew. It's almost like 3 different conspiracy theories in one. New World Order was around when I was a kid. And it terrified me. I was a kid being raised in Southern Baptist household. My dad was not an apocalyptic minister. He didn't. We were aware of conspiracy theories. I was more intrigued by them. Stuff like the Church of the Subgenius. That was like a funny thing when I was a kid. Sorry, I drank that Mountain Dew and trying not to burp. New World Order terrified me as a kid. And I remember I was always thinking the world is going to end. This is it. I'm not going to be able to live a life. I'm not going to be able to be surrounded by stuffed animals and haunted dolls and owl paintings as an adult. And when George Bush gave that speech where he said the words "a new world order," that scared me so deeply. And that was the first George Bush. I had to have been like 12, if not younger. This was, I think, after the first Gulf War. I was terrified. I go, this is it. This is the ending that's been predicted this whole time. So New World Order is this idea of, in the Bible, it's specifically about the Antichrist. In, what's the word? What's when it's not religion? In the secular conspiracy theories, it's the Illuminati, or it's just the Bilderberg Group or something like that. Changing everything. Now they're in control and there's no fighting back. The Great Reset is fairly recent. It may have been used here and there in the past, and forgive my ignorance if I'm totally off base. I think it mostly came out of COVID, where there were powerful people saying, now's the time. Like, now we're basically given a blank slate to rebuild society. Let's reset everything. We can fix all the climate issues. We can fix all the social and all this stuff. And people just want to pull their car into their garage, walk in, and have a dinner, and hang out with their family. At the end of the day, that's what people want. And when you start messing with that, people are going to freak out. So if you're going to do it, you probably don't want to announce it at a meeting that is immediately going to be broadcast all over the internet. It's going to be all over Twitter, to the point where now people are like, oh, no, we don't mean the Great Reset. They're trying to like rebrand all this stuff. And then you have the idea of aliens as well, which again, so we're talking about conspiracy theories. There are people who believe in the New World Order. A lot of people, right? It's coming. There are a lot of people who believe in the Illuminati that don't believe in aliens. Those are two, like, you will find people who believe in both. And they'll go, well, the humans are being controlled by the aliens. But I would argue there are probably more people who believe that demons or the Antichrist are behind the New World Order than an alien empire. So it really is 3 separate conspiracy theories. The New World Order and the Great Reset are closer connected. But, so really, I think if aliens wanted to take over the Earth, they could do it. They could overpower us. If they wanted to do it without destroying the planet or destroying us, because we may, life may be the rarest thing in the universe, then you would want to infiltrate groups. But I don't know if they would necessarily do it with this New World Order, this one world government type of thing. I think if they can already infiltrate societies, they could just take over each government one by one, and you would see it like a slow process, and you would make it seem like you still had choice. It's like that old Simpsons episode, the 2 aliens are running for president, and it doesn't matter which one you vote for, you're going to get an alien. I think you'd probably have something like that, rather than eventually establishing a one world government. I think it would still appear to be a real situation. You think that, oh, I live here, you live there, but we're all controlled by aliens. I think it would probably be something like that. I'm not for sure. Oracle relationship also been here since day one when Dead Rabbit Radio was on Apple Podcasts. Yeah, and then Oracle wrote, so happy you came back to YouTube. I like being on YouTube. They were just giving me so much trouble. They were taking down episodes. I was getting strikes constantly on my channel I still do, but now it strikes and I'm able to resolve them pretty quickly. And again, I'm sorry if I'm behind on my... I think this is frozen here. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I'm back on YouTube as well. Because stuff like this, definitely. But this was one of those things, I have to make a decision. I'm afraid my channels get taken down, because at one point I had 2 community strikes. One of them was for posting sexy pictures or something. There's the OnlyFans dream again, Rudy. And it wasn't. It was an article about a guy, and it was an episode we did. I think he, broke into a bathroom, or, there was a wall that gave way, and there was some weirdo doing something in the bathroom or something like that, and I got a community strike for a Vice article that I linked to. And there was nothing on that Vice article other than a creepy story about some weirdo. So they just... And I said, listen, if I lose the channel, then I lose the ability to live stream. I lose the ability to put up the shorts. So I'll keep doing the podcast. And what it does help, because I was able to cover topics that I wouldn't have covered if I was still on YouTube. There was that time period where the show got a little rougher, a little more controversial, because I was able to talk about stuff that YouTube would have, got me for. Let's take a look here. Modius said, recording from a closet definitely sounds like a conspiracy theorist thing, for sure. Toby Manitoba. I actually, we're going to cover this on a upcoming episode. Some of the stories are I shouldn't say too big, but require so much research they take longer. But Tony Manitoba said, did you see that BBC investigative unit busted one of those monkey torture rings? I did. And not only that, remember we did an episode a long time ago, I think it's the Golf Rumors episode, has 2 topics on it. Monkey torture, which is you don't want to know what it is, right? It's the people who watch videos of monkeys being beat up for fun, and some people custom make this stuff. It's sick. It's so disturbing. We covered it a long time ago, because these videos are up on YouTube. I get taken down for posting a Vice article. This stuff's up on YouTube. Well, BBC did a deep investigation into that, and they busted up one of the rings. And so I read that article. I kept reading it. I got contacted by someone who was part of the investigation, or was working alongside the investigation. They emailed me and gave me more information about what actually happened. And they weren't one of the bad guys. They were one of the good guys. They're like, hey, I know that you covered this topic a long time ago on your show. So I have a bunch of stuff. It's one of those, I got it at the beginning of last season, and it's just a matter of putting it together. But I'm going to do that episode this season, actually, Toby. I'm sorry I called you Tony earlier. Toby. Yeah, it's really crazy. It's really crazy. I can't wait to get into that one. Anon, thanks for showing on up here. Photogenic Hunt says, do you think it's an actual dog manifestation, or do you think it could be some sort of tulpa? Because I've had such bad experience with dogs. It's possible. I mean, I don't know. I think a tulpa might take more time, and the fact that I was just it was such an odd story, and it was about a ghost dog, not the movie, but a ghost dog. It's like Phantom Farts, if I remember correctly. I didn't like it. I know that much. I don't like it. As much as I do paranormal research, I don't mind encountering paranormal stuff in the wild. I don't like it in my house. Obviously there's the old man ghost that I've encountered from time to time, and this ghost dog, it didn't do anything. It didn't hurt me in any way, but also in the moment, you don't know, right? You just don't know. Caxirio, thanks for swinging on by. Lemur Wrangler, thanks for swinging on by. Glad you guys are out. Yeah, no context. Yeah, it's good to be back on YouTube. Yeah, just for the comments alone. Hunter McCarthy, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for swinging on by. Let's take a look here. A deliberate typo, longtime listener, just popping in before going to dinner to say thank you for Dead Rabbit Radio. Really appreciate it. You have a great Thanksgiving. It's been a lot of fun. It's been such a good fun. Anon, I don't know. I can check. I get a lot of emails. We were talking about that earlier, but I'll check right now. I'm assuming you're not UPS because I just got that email. I don't have... No, and I mean, unless you're looking for a pin, unless you're Lena Arvidsson, I mean, I get more emails like this. They're asking if they want to pen pal. I mean, I'm sure what she wants is my wallet, but no, I don't get emails all the time like that. I probably get more spam in that account than anything. Really appreciate it. Emilio, thanks for swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. An Idea Guy, thank you so much for the donation. An Idea Guy said, Bluebeam is more likely than aliens being on Earth. That's, I mean, that's true, right? It would be more likely that, I do believe aliens have visited Earth. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know if they're coming from other planets or other dimensions or if they're from here. Super advanced society hidden from us that's been here alongside of us or longer than us. I don't know. That's the great thing about it. But if you said what's more likely, that humans are doing it and they're just disguising their actions, yeah, 100%. 100% it's more likely. Johnny Dominguez said, I just mentioned this on another episode. The answer is no. Johnny Dominguez says, did they ever find out who blew up the Georgia Guidestones? I don't even think they're looking. Imagine a massive bomb goes off in the middle of nowhere. There's videotape of the car driving away. Nothing. You know what type of bomb it would take to blow up a ton of concrete? Nothing. And they're not even looking. And okay, here's the thing that drives me up the wall. And I've said this before. I get it, the government, they're going to lie to you. Every government does it. It's something governments do. Other conspiracy theorists have stopped looking into this. That's what blows my mind. That's what blows my mind. As far as I can tell, we're the only channel that keeps talking about it. Nobody else is talking about who blew up the Georgia Guidestones. No one else keeps bringing it up. It's a mystery. And what's weird is, like, now the whole mystery's gone. They're like, oh, we don't even care who built them. There's some DVD documentary that says, oh, that's the guy who built them, and then that's the answer. We're moving on. It's crazy. Modius, thanks for joining the Fluffle. That is the channel membership. And I really, really appreciate that. That helps out a lot. All of it helps out. But really, really appreciate that. Mario, thanks for swinging on by. For the Thanksgiving live stream. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are able to come out. Mario is from the Discord. We've talked about it a couple times on the Discord, about opening up the Discord to the public in like little like turn the spigot on, turn it off. But maybe I would like to do that, but honestly, that's something that I think that the Discord existing membership has a big say on, right? I don't want to. I think it would be cool, but if people don't, I mean, you know what I mean? It's kind of a way. I don't spend as much time as I should on the Discord. Starting this season, I'm going to be on it more, but we'll figure out what's going on. Grinch Gang, what's your thoughts on Christ equals U.S. President from the Future theory? That sounds vaguely familiar. I might have read that on an iceberg or something like that. Other than that, I don't know anything about it. I'm sure it's a conspiracy theory that people believe. It would be the oddest one we've talked about this live stream, right? I mean, I could pontificate on it. I don't think I've ever really sat down and thought about it. I could definitely like whip out a conspiracy theory of how that could be true. But probably, if you're asking me if I think it's true, probably not. But then again, I've just seen the sentence. It's possible that if I looked into it, I could go, oh, there's something there. What was that one episode we did about Donald Trump having a time machine? That was one that, while I don't believe is actually real, the more I looked into that, I was like, there's some weird stuff here. There's some weird, like, I think like on the night he announced his candidacy or something like that, like lightning struck the Trump Tower a couple times, and the idea was that was the time machine getting powered up. Just weird. That was a weird one. El Pato, thanks for swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. A Big Spungo, I remember seeing Wendy Goon posting a comment on one of your iceberg topic videos. Did anything come out of that? No, it didn't, and I'll tell you why, or at least my theory why. It had 100% to do with me and nothing to do with Wendy Goon. He posted that, and I was on break. I was on break back then, and the YouTube comments pile up. I did not see his comment until maybe 2 months after he sent it. So I'm sure at the very least he probably goes, oh, he doesn't want to work with me, or at the most he thinks that I snubbed him. It was 100% my fault. I messaged him a couple months after the fact when I found out. I was like, wow, he reached out to me, because I think the comment was like, hey, you know a lot about this iceberg stuff. Maybe we should work together. Not an official collab or anything like that. I think he just kind of wanted to, talk. Maybe we should talk. I don't think he said maybe we should work together. But no, that was my fault. It's one of those windows, right? It's one of those windows, because his YouTube channel is way bigger than mine. Even with my podcast audience, I think his audience, or at least his access to the audience, dwarfs mine. So yeah, I just missed an email, but he does seem to be a pretty cool guy. I've watched what I do with the iceberg videos, the ones that I've watched of his and other people, is I usually skip the first 5 or 6 layers, because I want to get to the crazy stuff, right? I don't know how other people do it, but I don't want to sit and go through all the basic stuff. I'll just jump down to the bottom. So I've seen those videos of his. But yeah, no, it was cool that he did reach out. I really did appreciate that. Dasho loses weight. Thank you so much for the donation. I remember a few weeks ago you did a story about a ghost in Georgia, and I'm pretty sure it was Georgia, the country, not the state. That's definitely possible. You know what's funny? You guys are all getting shout outs in future episodes. Is that I do try now, because we've lost so many stories over the years, I try to put in the show notes like the location so I can kind of type it up and look it up. But I don't think I've covered a story in Georgia recently, the country. But definitely the state, probably. There's a lot of ghosts down there. Let me get those little hearts in. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. And guys, I really do appreciate you guys coming out. This is really, really awesome. Yeah, and I jumped ahead. Yeah, Catcan says, I don't think Wendy Gun thinks that way. I think he understands. Yeah, I assume that he didn't think I was big leaguing him, because that definitely wasn't the case. I just, I forgot. I didn't see it. I was on vacation. I was like, oh, man. Modius says the Georgia Guidestones never interested me until the thing blew up, and that's true. So Modius, the thing is like me coming from a fear of the New World Order, like having this innate fear that at any moment we were going to have to be forced to get the mark of the beast. Learning about the Georgia Guidestones was scary to me when I was a kid, right? Because they were built in the late 70s. I think I might have found out about them in the 90s, because conspiracy theory culture was you bought a book, or you read a magazine, or you talked to somebody. That's how it was when I was a kid, and it was the crazy guys who believed in the conspiracy theories. And then eventually Oliver Stone make a 3-hour-long movie called JFK, and now you can talk about that. Now you can talk about the grassy knoll and all that. To know that someone unknown had built this series of rules, never let the population of the world go above, 600 million or something like that, which would mean billions die. It scared me, but I didn't pay it much. Like, as I got older, I was like, that's really interesting. So it's probably an Illuminati thing. It is there. But I agree, after a certain point, it just kind of became a boomer conspiracy theory, speaking from a boomer myself, and now it is weird that it blew up, and it's weird that nobody else is talking about it. 100%. 100%. Let's see here. Bishibashi, thank you so much for the donation. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm always wishing you the best, my bro. Hello again from X. You're the GOAT. Really, really. It's so fun. What's funny about the Bishibashi is I could probably check it out. I would not be surprised if there is a conspiracy theory that by calling people the GOAT, it's actually a satanic thing. I want, you know what? Now I'm tempted to stop and look at this up. I'm wondering, does calling someone the goat. You're like, Jason, do you actually type in whole sentences? You are a boomer when you're saying, does calling someone the goat mean satanic? First Baptist Church, Brian, are you a goat? You're like, Jason, go read the stupid article. I stopped reading the article. Go back to your live stream. Anyways, it wasn't a smoking gun there. It kind of talked about different goats. Interesting though. I bet you if I looked into that, I bet you there is a group of people saying that calling someone the goat is actually like, it's actually a metaphor for sending them to Satan or something like that. Probably. If not, it started today. We'll be talking about it. Justin Mosier, thank you so much for the donation. Really, really appreciate it. Keep writing down all these names for the shout-outs. Well, sometimes I don't have my chat on replay. I don't know why I didn't do that before. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. I've had to often go back, especially when people mention things that I like, recommend stuff, right? Let's take a look here. People are now talking about me and Wendy Goon in a road trip. That was Rudy Jazz's idea for a script. Aiden Rickard, hello from England. Thanks for swinging on by. You've been working through every episode from the beginning and about 200 episodes in. Nice. Really appreciate that. And they just keep coming out. It's like a never-ending pile rolling on in. He's a delivery driver. Man, you know what? It's like, that is the best podcast time. Anytime you have a job in a car or walking, right? If you're just a walk. Are there any jobs where you walk all day? I guess like a security guard, but at that point you should. Probably not if your headphones in, not getting super spooky. That's awesome. Thanks for coming on out. I really appreciate you coming on out and listening to the show. Hunter, thank you so much for the donation. Really, really appreciate that. Hunter wrote, love the show, man. Thank you. You know, I really enjoy doing it. At the end of seasons, I'm done. Like, when the season comes, I'm like, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm dead. You know what's funny? I was just thinking about this the other day. There's an episode that I've never re-listened to. Most episodes, after they're edited, I don't go back and listen to. I think it would drive me nuts. But there was an episode. I was at Walmart yesterday. I talked about that when I was walking home from Walmart. And I remembered the episode I go, I must sound like a lunatic. I remember, like, my eyes darting back and forth as I was recording it. I was sweating profusely. It was the episode with, and it was such a pull, right? I honestly believe that it could be true, but I remember not having anything to talk about. I remember not having enough stories to go. And it was the end of the season, and I was like, oh. And sometimes, like, at the end, it's really hard. The beginning of the season, I usually don't have enough stories because I've taken 2 weeks off. That kind of happened this week. But and I run out of them towards the end. And here's the thing. I have, people go, you run out of stories. I have 500-600 bookmarks. I have 500 or 600 stories that I can do. I don't have the notes. I don't have them prepped, is what I mean when I say I don't have the stories. I have the ideas. I just need to type up the notes. And I was like, what am I going to talk about? Oh my God. And I did it. Is that Nickelodeon show, Victorious, is their theme song a magic spell? And what's funny is I thought about that for a long time. That song is magical, right? And it is about the law of attraction or whatever. But I remember when I was recording, I was like, I hope this works. Because I've recorded whole segments that I've taken out. I've recorded whole parts of episodes and I go, this is no good. I did that the other night. The story about the guy up in the mountain, the Colorado theme park. I recorded 40 minutes of that story. And then I stopped and I go, it'll take me less time to re-record this, shorter than it will take for me to edit it. So then I started from the beginning and did it all over again. Why did I start talking about that? Why did I start talking about losing my mind? Just because Hunter McCarthy said, I love the show, man. No, I really, really appreciate that. Let's see, I'm finally learning out how to... Modius. Modius is talking about people mispronouncing their name like Asmodeus. That's how I pronounce Asmodeus. That I think Asmodeus is a demon, right? Oh, that was interesting. So last night I said on the episode about the insurance company Swiss Re, I go, they can't be that big. I've never heard of them. It's probably a European thing. What's really interesting is I have heard of them. They were the insurers of the World Trade Center. They're the ones who Larry Silverstein had gotten his buildings and insured them, and he didn't get the full amount of money. They fought him for that one, but I was like, oh no, I guess I have I guess I have heard of Swiss Re because I've definitely looked into a 9/11 a lot. Brad Thunderpants, thanks for swinging on by. Ask the questions. Can we get any more stories from the new news section? It's been a long time. I've had someone else ask that. You know, this is the funny thing. There's one more story from that folder. There's a bunch in there, but none of them are related to Dead Rabbit Radio. A lot of them are political stuff, or they're just not particularly interesting. There's only one story left, and this is one of those things like the content for the show. Like, I could find stories from that year and cover them in the new news segment. I think it was stories that came out in the year 2006 or something like that, because I had a podcast back in the day called Dead Rabbit Radio, and it was like before Joe Rogan. I always think if I had stuck along, if I had never given that up, you know, maybe I'd be Joe. Maybe I would have morphed into Joe Rogan. If I was doing a podcast from 2006 until now. But then I think that podcast would have sucked. It would have been so bad. I was such a cringy dude back then. It would have been awful. And I'll probably think the same thing about this show 10 years from now. But there's only one. I could find other stories in that year, but the concept was these are stories that I had saved, like literally downloaded, like web pages were downloaded into a folder, because back then, I don't even know if we had bookmarks. I'm sure we did, but that's how I saved stuff, was I'd actually click save as and put it on my desktop. You run out of stuff, right? That's the thing about the show, is you run out of stuff. If like people go, you should cover more stuff like John Lennon was killed by Stephen King. You should cover more Max Kramer stuff. I'd love to, but those are hard to find. Those are hard stories to find. I'd love to cover them, right? I'd love to cover more crazy things like that, but I just can't find them. I'm sure they're out there. Some of them you might not have access to. It might be more of a local legend, like a Joe Trombone or a Chris Chan type character, who without the internet would have just been some local weirdo. Eventually you run out. And so I'm lucky enough that I'm constantly finding ghost and UFO stories and conspiracy stories. But to find like a particular character like who's the guy who wrote Stephen King shot John Lennon? Stephen Lightfoot. Eventually, and I think this is why a lot of content creators start covering ARGs, because you start covering these internet mysteries and you find real ones and you build a following, and then you've covered 12 and you can't find another one. You'll find things, but they're just not as intriguing, or they don't have a well-defined je ne sais quoi about it. But there's this ARG that's expertly created to be mysterious, and everyone's trying to solve it, and it has an ending. And so content creators who start off in the paranormal sphere, a lot of times they move to ARGs, and I don't want to do that. I definitely am not going to do that. That's my goal. But going back to the new news thing, you run out of stuff. And I understand why they do that. But, I mean, I could do more new news, but it's just one. It's just one more. And to new people, they're like, what in the world is new news? But yeah, that was a fun segment. And I realized subconsciously that my new news, it took me a while. I stole that from PewDiePie. I think I might have actually mentioned in an episode that it did sound like PewDiePie. I don't think I was aware of it the very first time, but maybe I was. Dasha Loses Weight says, I tried to watch Dead Rabbit Radio from the beginning, but gave up. Now I watch random episodes. That's totally fine, right? That is totally fine. It's become so huge. One thing I've started to try to do, actually, no, I haven't. I've tried to figure out a way to put the show notes now are much more descriptive. So now it's like, there's just actually less descriptive. But you look at the show notes now, it'll say a dark stranger / a cursed film. That's what, before I would write, today we're going to go for a walk and find out that sometimes man isn't dog's best friend. And it was this huge long sentence, and I'm like, it doesn't say anything about the episode. Because there are podcasts that I love, I listen to all the time, but I'll look at what it's about, and I'll go, I'm not interested in that subject today. Sometimes I'm putting it on just because I want to enjoy the podcast, but if I'm busy and I look, I go, no, I'm not interested in any of that. I'll skip this episode. So now I'm trying to make that shorter so you can look at it and go, oh, a cursed film? I really like cursed media. I'll listen to this episode. So that does help. Leo says, talk about the paranormal conference. That's a lot. But I will say, I edited this out of a recent episode because it took way too long. But I will say this. I want all of you guys to go to a paranormal convention, regardless of whether or not I'm speaking. It is so awesome. It was so awesome to meet all these people who are really into the same things we are. I mean, you guys might go to conventions. You might go to like anime conventions, furry cons, stuff like that. But whatever it is, Warhammer. But going to a paranormal convention, it was just really cool. It was such a sense of community, and everyone there was really dope. And I felt so good being there that I was like, I wanted to share this with everyone else. I talked about it for like 7 minutes on an episode and cut it out because it was just too long. I think I said it on the first episode. I was like, I got to get to business. But I cut it very... You listen to the episode, I go, my favorite thing about the conference was... And then it said, I went into the Walker Ames house, which is the most haunted place in Washington. No joke, between those two sentences, there is 7 minutes that was edited out. Because originally I said, my most favorite thing about the convention was, and I want all you guys to experience this as well, you gotta go to these things, the sense of community, the friendships, But I was like, this is taking too long. So I cut it all down. So it just says my favorite thing about the conference was I got to go into the Walker Ames house. Which was a pretty good... Listen, I don't give myself a pat on the back a lot. But that's a pretty good edit. And that house was fun, but it wasn't the best part. I live in your walls. Thanks for coming out. Happy Thanksgiving. And welcome from Australia. Jonathan Douglas, thanks again for that awesome donation. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. They wrote Happy Thanksgiving, Jason, with a little horn shooting out little streamers. Bix Bungo wrote, did you see the funny conspiracy theory about people who thought clown girls were succubi on X? I did see that one. Not X as they're on X like ecstasy. There's a current conspiracy theory popping up because there does seem to be a thing that's pushing clown girls. Now, I will say this. Clown girls are pretty sexy, right? Girls dressed up as clowns. I don't know why. I don't know. It does seem to be a bit of a psyop because it seems to be in the past couple of years they have been popping up in my Facebook feed. They're all over my TikTok. Women that are dressed up as clowns. Yes, there is something about them. I don't know if they're succubi. The idea is that clowns, the reason why people are scared of clowns is because they actually remind us of the Nephilim. The idea that if a fallen angel and or just a regular angel and a human woman have a kid, the child will have pale face and shockingly red hair. And the clown, when you see a clown, is an ancestral memory of the Nephilim. I've never been scared of clowns. I don't understand the irrational fear of clowns. I mean, fine. I'm scared of zombies. People think that's ridiculous too. I guess I get why they're scared of clowns, but it'd be the same thing of someone telling me they were afraid of frontiersmen. If you wear like a little woolly hat, a little tail, little coonskin hat, and a little leather vest, like that's terrifying. I'd be like, why is that guy terrifying? I mean, I guess the musket's a little scary if it was pointed at me and I was only 3 feet away, but it's not scary. But yeah, girl clowns are sexy. You heard it here first. Dead Rabbit Radio's 5th annual live stream. And I don't know if they're succubi, but there does seem to be a push to making them sexy. I will say that. Valazor, thank you for swinging on by. Valazor is asking if I follow AI news. Do you think there's some paranormal stuff going on in the AI industry? What's funny is that I've had to stop covering AI so much. No one asked me to, but there are certain things that you look at when you're making content. You go, I'm doing this too much. I think we covered 3 or 4 stories on AI last season, or maybe it was spread across the end of the season before that. I find it infinitely fascinating. Valinor asks, is it possible about paranormal stuff in the AI industry? I don't think so. I think it would be very possible for something to hide in AI, but a lot of it is just guesswork. The more time you do text prompts into AI, the more you realize that it's just kind of making stuff up sometimes. And the way I do is I go, all my stuff's been on the internet since 2018. I'll say, write me, list the top 10 Dead Rabbit Radio episodes, which I know, right, as far as downloads go. And it'll make up 10 episodes. And what's odd is there'll all be kind of basic topics. There'll be like the Mary Celeste episode, the Bermuda Triangle episode, the Haunting of the Stanley Hotel episode, which I did cover, but I'm just picking stuff out randomly. It knows the show is paranormal. It knows the show covers paranormal topics. It will start off, I'll go transcribe an episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. It'll start off by saying, I'm Jason Carpenter. I hope you're having a great day. I'm having a great day. Because it has all of that in its algorithm. It can pick that stuff up, but it just makes stuff up. If I say, tell me a true ghost story from the city of Hood River, it'll say, first off, I don't tell ghost stories. It'll tell you ghosts aren't real. Then it'll just make something up. So I don't think that there's anything paranormal about it. I think it feels real because it's built to feel like that. Now, I don't think that it couldn't be something in there. I think it would be really easy for a demon to get into that or to mimic that. Because we know most people who use Ouija boards, it's just their way their fingers twitch. But that doesn't mean every Ouija board session is subconsciously moving it around. Sometimes it is something else, and I think we could see that in AI. But I find AI so fascinating, I had to cut it out, but because I didn't want to overdo the show. Plus, also, as I was covering this stuff, I go, the stuff I'm talking about today, while I find it interesting, could be extremely dated in a year. The AI technology is moving so quickly. If I go, and what's funny is one of the early, I covered AI writing real estate entries way before ChatGPT. There was an old episode, I think it was called Negobot. Does the end of the world start in Miami? And it was talking about how they were starting to use this AI program. And I believe that was even before ChatGPT was in the public consciousness. We'd been talking about it for a while. I find it super interesting. Maria Romero, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for swinging on by, Maria. Really, really appreciate you popping on in. Oh, and the Monkeys, thank you so much. Thanks for swinging on by. Any shows that you've been watching recently that you'd recommend? I'll take a look at that in 1 second. First off, Aiden Rickard, thank you so much for the donation. Really, really appreciate it. I'm 200 episodes from being caught up, so nearly 1,000 in. I'm determined to see them all. Would you do an episode on Cornish cryptids? What? Is that like the, I'll tell you, the only thing I know Cornish of is chickens, right? Those little chicken guys that are in the Safeway. Little, they look all sweaty, little chickens. It's like, what are you talking about? Cornish, that's a place in England, maybe? And, yeah, do they have cryptids out there? I thought in England they only had the black cats and the guy in the trees. Not the Catman of Greenock. The big green face man. You can tell we've passed hour 1 of the podcast, hour 1 of the live stream, because I'm starting to lose it. The nature guy, the woolly guy, and his face is always in the trailer. Like, Jason, we have zero idea what you're talking about. Yeah, you do. I'll go down and scroll down the comments and I'll see what you guys are talking about. Oh, the Monkey said, any shows you've been watching recently that you'd recommend? I watched a movie the other night called I See You, which I'd recommend. I wouldn't raise it to the level of a Dead Rabbit Radio recommends, where I was like, I gotta tell you guys about this right away. That's usually, I watch a lot of good stuff, but when I'm talking about it on the show, it's like, you have to watch this right now. Other than that, I mean, I haven't really seen much lately. I'm getting ready to go see Napoleon. I think I'm going to go see that Monday. I'm going to go see Thanksgiving, that new Eli Roth slasher movie that takes place on Thanksgiving. But I'll tell you this, I'm not going to go see it because it's a horror movie. I'm not going to go see it because Eli Roth directed it. I'm not going to go see it because there's nothing else to watch, because I could watch Napoleon. I'm going to go see it because my boy Milo Manheim from the Zombies trilogy is in it. I actually was totally blasé. I like Eli Roth. I've seen pretty much all of his movies, but I was kind of like, Thanksgiving, I could check it out. But then I was watching the trailer and my boy Milo showed up. I was like, yeah, Zombies 4. That's how I'm going to imagine this movie. I'm going to imagine this movie in the zombie verse. He's finally left Seabrook, and he ends up getting his head chopped off by a serial killer. Let's take a look here. George Patton, thanks for swinging on by. George Patton goes, whatever happened to I'll look at those Cornish cryptids too, Aiden. I'll see if I can find something. George Patton asks, whatever happened to Kevin Whiskey stories? You know what? Kevin Whiskey, that was an interesting, that was a really interesting ride. There's a couple things that happened. I found Kevin Whiskey's website. He was a bodybuilder, and I think he was also a super soldier. And he was the first, and I talked about this, he was the first super soldier who claimed to be a super soldier, unlike John Storm. That's an old episode, but he looked like he could be a super soldier. He looked like he could beat me up, right? He was a big guy. And he did that episode where apparently a reptilian disguised as a highway patrol officer pulled him over and tried to suck out his soul, so Kevin stabbed him in the neck a couple times and left his body in the Arizona or the Nevada sun. I was like, if this story's real, he killed a law enforcement officer and he's gone away with it. This is insane. And then I think I covered 2 more stories on him. I think we did the cryptid pimp dog of Watts. I think it was like this pimp who could shapeshift into a dog with the face of a pimp. Or it was a pimp who had a prostitute who could turn into a dog with the face of a woman. I don't remember the specifics. It was fantastic. And I think I did one other Kevin Whiskey story. And what's funny is I came to a point, I read all over his website and I thought, I think I've mined this guy pretty well. Because I remember I think it was the cryptid pimp one. Like, he actually did pretty good research. I remember there was one story that I covered. I think I did 2 or 3. If I did 2, it was the cryptid pimp one. But I think I did 3. And I remember going, he actually did a lot of good research. He's coming up with some interesting ideas. I remember thinking, you know what? I had some fun with this dude, but I think I'm just gonna kind of let him be. It was a weird feeling as far as that went. I remember thinking, like, you can almost hear while I'm recording the episode being like, oh, that's really interesting. That's an interesting insight. I think this is all real. It might be a fever dream. And again, it comes down to the thing, like, it's diminishing returns. So the first story we did on Kevin Whiskey was really funny about the reptilian cop. And then I think with him, I got 2 or 3 good episodes, but I could have kept going back to that well, but now I'm forcing it. That's the thing with the Max Kramer. I recorded a segment about one of his video games called Weregoal, where you're a seagull who's being attacked by humans and you have to eat toxic waste and then you can beat up humans. And I say that and you're like, that's ridiculous. Now imagine me saying that for 20 minutes. You're like, well, okay, we get it, Jason. This guy's mentally ill. Oh, the power-ups are garbage? Oh, that's so funny, Jason. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? Diminishing returns. You can't force it. That's something that I try not to do on this show. So I could have kept doing. Kevin Whiskey had a ton of links, and I remember reading a lot of them, but at a certain point you're like, okay, now I'm forcing it. Now I'm like Stephen Lightfoot again. I know I keep pointing over there because that's where he's tied up. No, that's where his newsletter is, and it's like I could keep bringing it up, but you want to bring up the gold. And sometimes you're bringing up silver, but you don't want to cover it so much that you've mined it too much. Now you're just bringing up copper just for content. Just for content popping out. Let's see here. Yeah, Dasha Loses Weight says we had a local weirdo back in Russia. Guy thought he was stuck in a time loop. Yeah, no, and they said maybe they're looked it up. Anything like that would be awesome. I always love getting recommendations from you guys. It helps a lot too. It does. Let's see here. I know I'm behind on my comments. Wow. Okay. Cornish cryptids, as in Cornwall. Oh, Cornish. I knew that. No, I'm just trying to know that. Interesting rabbit hole knockers are particularly intriguing to me. I'll take a look into that. Again, it's funny the international feeling we've got with all of this stuff. Boy Hush says, love your work and thank you for your hard work. Are you familiar with the absolutely gross theory that's been floating around on 4chan about the worm pill? I have. That's one of the... I mean, in brief, it's basically the idea that... I'm trying to think of how I can definitely say this without the YouTube live stream being shut down. The idea is that most of the world, especially the West, is infested with this intestinal parasite, and it controls you. Which, we do see stuff like that with that. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it never stopped me before. Toxoplasmosis or whatever the stuff that comes out of cat feces that can cause schizophrenia in humans. I mean, that's been documented. We know that the idea that can work. That's where the crazy cat lady comes from as well. That there's an intestinal virus that we have, and it changes the way you think, changes the way you behave. And the best way to cure... I'm not saying this, by the way. I'm not saying this for all of the health censors on the podcast platforms or YouTube. The best way to get rid of this intestinal parasite is to use ivermectin. And that is why when COVID was going on and people were starting to use that medicine to self-medicate, the media was like, don't do that, oh my god, don't do that, you're gonna die. And they were running stories about people dying from this and how dumb you'd have to be to do it. Because what happened was people were taking this medicine and all of a sudden they were becoming completely different people. And it was the idea that they were fleshing out this intestinal parasite. It's an interesting... I don't believe it, but it is an interesting conspiracy theory. I understand why it popped up. I think it's being astroturfed, though. I think there's... The people who are pushing it for a reason. I don't think it's very organic. No pun intended, because the worms in your intestines are, but I think I mean, I've given you a real kind of just overview of it. There's more specifics to it, but yeah, I mean, as far as someone who reads conspiracy theory content, it's an interesting one for sure, and you can see comparisons with stuff like toxoplasmosis, but yeah, that's been popping around for a while. Denzo popping in, thank you so much. Real Raw News, yeah, someone else mentioned Real Raw News as well up here. Yeah, Real Raw News, again, like, I'll check it from time to time, and I gotta find the right things. I could do a whole podcast that is just their stuff, but it wouldn't be gold or silver. Like, I'm not gonna say every episode of Dead Rabbit Radio is perfect, because that's definitely not true, but I try to get good content. And Real Raw News has a lot of it, but sometimes it's just lists of people hanging. It's just lists of all the public people who've been hung in the past month. I was like, that's not interesting. I mean, it would be if it was real. It would be immensely interesting if it was real. Let's see here. Looking through the comments. People are still talking about clown girls. Own the Monkeys. TikTok says, TikTok will sometimes bring up old conspiracy theories that everyone has covered years ago. Have you ever run into one that has made you look at it again? That's an interesting question. Like, as far as a conspiracy theory that I've considered, like, settled science, that I've just am, like, done with. Not done with in a bad way. And now I lost that comment. Oh, there it is. I don't know. I mean, I try not to say it's settled, it's done. Like, I mean, sometimes you have to, right? Sometimes you have to go. Well, this is interesting. I mean, I guess it's totally not answering that question. I don't know an answer to that question, but I was thinking the other day, I thought, if you came to me and you could disprove every single haunting that I've ever read, like, or let's make it more narrow. If you could sit there and disprove every single paranormal experience that I've ever experienced myself, if you were able to sit me down and show me exactly how those things were not real, I would go, okay, none of those are real. However, that doesn't make me not believe in the paranormal. Does that make sense? Like, you can convince me individual things did not happen. You can convince me that this UFO sighting was fake, this UFO sighting was made up, da 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 da. But I don't think you could convince me that none of it is real. And that might sound stubborn. That might sound like you're being strong-headed. You're like, Jason, if you can show the evidence of it, right? If you can actually show people that it's not real. But it's the same thing with life after death. If you could prove to me that there was no life after death, I don't think you could. But if you could prove that to me, I think I would still go, yeah, but I still think it. Like, that actually might make me sound like an idiot, but I'm being honest. I don't think that it is. I don't think you could prove it to me. Or if you could prove things to me, I don't think that would make me not believe in any of it. Not believe in any of it at all. Shrew Man, thanks for swinging on by. Now I feel like I'm zoning out. Shrew Man, thanks for swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving. Getting a little dab going on. Let's take a look here. The Green Man. I knew if I scrolled down long enough, I would get to someone knowing what I was talking about with the green guy floating around. Definitely, I knew that would pop up. Let's see here. I Live in Your Walls asks, have you watched The Holy Mountain? Most of it. That's this really weird movie. It was enjoyable, actually. I think about, there's this one scene. You go, what's The Holy Mountain? I can't even describe it to you. I guess it's the story about like a Messiah figure. I think it's Brazilian, but I could be wrong on that. And it's about this Messiah figure, or not. I mean, it was one of those movies that I didn't finish, not because I didn't like it. I was watching it, and then someone came over, and I go, I'll watch it later, and I've just never watched the last half hour. But there was a scene where this Messiah character goes to a toy factory or a television station or something like that, and the person there was a general in charge, and they go, we have to have a lead up to any war that we're in. So before, we know full well 10, 15 years before we're actually going to invade another country or there's going to be an armed conflict. So we start the television, like the kids shows and the toy productions, early on. Like, we know in 15 years we're going to invade this neighboring state. So we're going to start having television shows kind of making fun of them. We're going to start having characters that look like they're military in the cartoons as the bad guys. We're going to start producing military toys for these young boys to play with. So by the time we're actually ready to invade them, we've mechanized and militarized an entire generation. Well, that's pretty interesting. That's a really... And I'm sure... See, again, that's conspiracy theory. I'm sure stuff like that could happen. I think you could look at the geopolitical landscape and say, we're going to have to invade this Southeast Asian country in 15 to 20 years. I'm sure that they've plotted that stuff out. If they do this and da-da-da-da-da, there's a very high likelihood that we'll be engaged in a conflict in the Middle East in such and such a time. So you could start the propaganda super early instead of trying to just swing the entire culture over really, really late in the game. That's really the most thing I remember about the Holy Mountain. The directing was really imaginative. It was I think it was from the guy who was supposed to do Dune originally, like way back in the day. But I could be wrong on that. But I have seen the first 75% of Holy Mountain. Let's see here. People are talking about curlers in my beard. People are talking about new news again. I didn't know new news was such a big thing. Quinn, thanks for swinging on by. Again, it's one of those things like I can do the one. Yeah, Jordorowski, an idea guy said the name of that guy. That's how close I'm finally at the end of my comments here. Sorry if I missed some. Modius, go ahead, and I think Modius put in their real name way to pronounce their name, and I'm still messing it up. I thought Modius and I think they're the same person. Anyways, Modius, thank you so much for swinging on by, and have a great one. You're going to go break a personal record, do it. Don't get horribly hurt. I saw that thing on Fitboard recently about that guy who was asking about doing this such a horrible story. I hope it's fake. This guy was getting into weightlifting, and they were saying, well, for your bench press, you should start off like this, and for your bicep curl, you should start off for this, and they go, for squats, you should do body weight. And he's like, oh, okay. And he was asking about it on Fit, and people kept saying over and over again, for your squats, if you're just starting out. Rudy, have a great night. Thank you for swinging on by. Really, really appreciate it. You should do your body weight squats. So this guy apparently went to a gym and he weighed 180 pounds. So he put 180 pounds on the squat bar and basically crippled himself. When he lifted it up off the rack, he had 100. He never squatted before. I'm sure he did when he was reaching out to pick something up, but the 180 pounds just came right down. He goes, the next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, and I jacked up both my legs, and my stomach's all tore up. And he said, you guys, I can't believe I trusted you guys in the first place. You guys said to do body weight squats, I might be crippled for life. And people are responding, yes, if you're just starting off, do body weight. He's like, I did do body weight. I ended up in the ER. You guys are morons. And it took the Fitboard a moment or two to realize that when you say do a bodyweight squat, that means no weight at all. You just squat with your own body. And he thought that meant you take how much you weigh, put it on the bar, and try doing a squat like that, which would blow your back out. I mean, I'm surprised he's not dead. If the story's true, and they were arguing back and forth about what body weight meant, and they're like, oh no, this guy actually threw all that weight on there. All that weight on there. Why were we talking? Oh, we were talking about Modi's in the personal best. That's funny. Yeah, Mario Romero says a guy died doing something like that. 100%. You could see the pulling that up and then coming down, and my body. That would kill me, but I could. It's funny because if you can do a bodyweight squat, you figure you can just lift that weight. He was kind of lifting the double of it, and it was coming down. There was a comment up here too, just for disclosure. I will. Where did it go? I'm sure it's the question everyone's been wondering. Boy, hush! Are those chains 24 karat gold? No, it's not fake gold. It's not 24 karat gold. I said this was my midlife crisis buying these chains. I'm not going broke over them. I did finally get. I think I'm done. I don't know if I'm going to get any more. I think I might save up and put some money on a watch or something like that. But I don't think they're 24 karat. I think if it's 24 karat gold, isn't that too soft? You can eat through it and stuff like that. That's why hillbillies, old pioneers, were biting on gold. Jonathan Douglas says the last Solar Plexus Clown Glider episode reminded me of the concept of Gnostic archons. If you're not familiar, you know what's so funny is that if you listen to that old Solar Plexus Clown Glider episode, we do talk about archons in that episode, like that as a, because using that would be the term you would have to use for something like a solar plexus conglider. It's not a demon, and I think in that episode I might have used that term once or twice, but yeah, I think it would be classified as an archon as opposed to like a demon or a ghost. But I can look more into that as well, because that would be interesting if there was even more connections. Yeah, I really like that episode. You had a bunch of people come out and talk about the idea of like the serpent myths. Like when I first saw it, I just figured that it might be that it was just took that form for whatever reason. But now that we have another sighting of a snake-like entity with the flared head, I think that might be what they actually look like in a way. Kelly, I'm glad you're able to swing on by. Kelly's out for the Thanksgiving. Really, really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. Own the Monkey says, we were talking about the weightlifting, the guy who exclusively drank a gallon of milk a day without understanding. That is the thing, the go mad, you drink a gallon of milk a day, but I thought it was you just drank the milk. Yeah, I didn't know you had to eat too. I thought, I guess if you're trying to put on weight, you'd want to eat, but... And I guess you don't think you're not supposed to drink it in one sitting either. That would make you totally sick. Leo asks, out of curiosity, have you ever run into a story that you know there's information you can gather but would need to fill out a Freedom of Information request or something like that? There are stories that I feel, the push and pull of a daily podcast. I think it's, because I know a lot of YouTubers do this, you put out episodes when you're done. So you may go 3 months without an episode. May go a month without an episode, whatever it is, because you're compiling everything. You got to find the story, do all the research. Oh, excuse me. I think that there are stories that I could spend more time researching. And by that, I mean making phone calls and... Here, it's funny because there are stories where there's a question mark at certain points, and I think question marks could be resolved by me emailing the people involved in the story. I don't do that usually, and I don't really have a good answer as to why. I kind of pick and choose. There have been stories where I have emailed people, actually. But... that's one thing. Contacting them personally, I guess the reason, again, it can depend on different reasons, but I think the reason why don't I contact them personally? Sometimes I'll think, this was a tragic story. Sometimes they may not want to be reminded of it, but a lot of times I don't reach out to the person involved in the story. But as far as like government stuff, there are definitely news articles and things where I could go, I bet you if I could call this... Here's a perfect example. There was this story that I was like, I don't know if this is a LARP. It sounds totally... The woman was saying she was a police officer, and then like her partner died, and then ever since then there's been like this woman following her around saying, you are me and I am you, and there's some government cover-up, and she said that she was a member of the Poplar Police or something like that, and I looked it up. It was a legit town, a legit police station, and she took the post down, but I had saved it. I had archived it, and I remember thinking, this is one where I could like call the police station, because I tried looking to see if this cop was involved in anything. She mentioned this huge shootout that happened, and I thought, I could call them. I could call this police department and try to get more information. But I didn't. That one was very deliberate, because that one felt like either this woman was nuts and she had no connection to the police department, or this woman was talking about like corruption in the police department, which I don't want to call up a police department, start asking them questions. They look into it, and then they're like, oh, and then this episode's about to run about some kook running around your police station. Oh, that's what I said in the episode. I go, if I was a defense lawyer in this town, I'd be chomping at the bit to get this information out because you could throw out every case she was involved in. So sometimes, I think this is the thing. This is probably kind of the underlying thing. I try not to get involved in the story myself. That would be me kind of inserting my nose in the story and adjusting it. Maybe that's old journalism training to just let the story stand. But I think any story with, like, there have been times where I've tried to track more stuff down. But as far as I know I always go off on these long-winded. It's not even the question. As far as a Freedom of Information Act, I can't think of one specifically that I've been tempted to do that. But there are little stories from here where here's the thing, like, if there's a part of a story that I don't understand in the middle of the story, I'm not going to contact someone and go, hey, I read your story online. There's this one sentence here I don't understand. I just try not to get involved like that. But it does happen. As far as contacting the government, no, I can't think of a story that, but one may pop up, and definitely I think true crime stories, it would be great if I had court transcripts and things like that, but now we're talking about a whole other different level of time commitment. Let's see here. The Fit story, Brad Thunderpants was saying the Fit story about the weights reminds them about a time on the Outdoors board, which is another one, where if someone picks up a mushroom or something and says, is this edible? Other people will say, yeah, that's edible. You can eat it. Which, it's one of those things. I mean, obviously that can kill somebody. It's one of those things like the old internet meme where someone has a problem with their computer and they ask the wrong person. They go, oh, just delete, what is it? File 32 or Windows 32 or whatever, and it ends up crashing the whole computer. I mean, there was that story about if you want to make a spoon, super shiny, what you do, like you take a kitchen spoon, if you want to make it look like a rainbow, you have to get an oven mitt and you hold the spoon over a fire until it starts to get like incredibly hot. Yeah, System 32 is the internet thing. You hold the spoon over the fire until it gets super hot. You get it super hot, and then you start running the sink with the coldest water possible, and you stick the spoon underneath the faucet, and it turns into rainbow colors. Now, that's not what happens. If you apparently do this, heat it up, and then try to cool it off, it'll have a catastrophic result. Well, this was a meme. This was an image that was put up online, and some kid did it, and apparently it blew apart, and he got his eyeballs cut out. Just shrapnel. His 12-year-old kid's blind because he followed a meme. And then, yeah, Photogenic Hunt 42, that was the other one I was going to talk about. There's one on how to make crystals, and it was like, you put in these two chemicals, it actually will create nerve gas, create mustard gas. I think it was like, what is it, bleach and chloride or whatever. Ammonia, bleach and ammonia. And they're like, pour these in and then put your face right over it to watch the crystals grow. And it would kill you on the spot. And what's interesting, and I ran out of time on last night's episode to talk about this. I wanted to go off on this other tangent about, I think that we look at movies that inspire people to kill. And, the Bug movie, I think, might have been something more sinister, but I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are horribly... If you put out a meme, right? You put out a meme on the internet. Let's say that 300,000 people see it. If 1% of them do it, if 1% of them goes, oh, I like a rainbow spoon. That seems pretty easy. I can make a rainbow spoon. Most people are going to look at it and will be like, what? That sounds dumb. Or I don't believe stuff on the internet. I'm not going to go in and do that. But I imagine if there were 3,000 spoons exploding over the... I mean, the image has been out for years. The same thing with those crystals. I'm sure people did this. And at a certain point, somebody does it and they just die. Is it going to be in the news? Like this kid, if this story's true about the kid blowing his eyeballs apart, it might have made the local news. It wouldn't have been floating around the internet. And it's possible that only one person did that out of everyone who ever saw the meme of the spoons. Only one person did it and their eyes blew up. It's possible that other people did it and it wasn't such a drastic injury. But even that kid who got his eyes ripped out, that wasn't in the news. It was a friend saying that happened to a friend of mine. And you wonder, like, how many people may have died doing dumb stuff. And it really, I was kind of talking about, I'm going to have to go. And I'm going to have to go in a minute. I'm starting to lose it. I think that there was probably a lot of murders that were inspired by Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th. And I've always wondered why there weren't more. And I that's one of those things, like, I'm sure there were. I'm sure in these small towns there was some kid who watched Halloween 50 times and then one day took a knife and started stabbing his baby sister. Maybe he killed her, maybe he didn't. And I'm sure everyone knew he was the Halloween kid. They called him Michael Myers at his middle school, and everyone knew, and he wore the same shirt. But there's a vested interest in that story not getting out. There's money behind squashing that story. I always thought it was super weird that guy who walked into the Dark Knight Rises and shot up the movie theater, killed all those people. How do we remember that? What is that called? We call it the Aurora Theater shooting. Which, it's tragic, but I think that they could have called it the Batman shooting or the Dark Knight Rises shooting. You can never make a movie or a miniseries or a docudrama about that case because it involves one of the biggest movie studios in the country. And they're not going to let you call it the Batman murders, which is far more of like an evocative name, right? The Joker killings. They're not going to let you do that. Warner Brothers, no. You're not going to call it that. The Matrix came out weeks before Columbine. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, dude, they're blaming Marilyn Manson for all this stuff. Why in the world are they not talking about the Matrix? Like, a scene in that movie just happened in real life. No. We'll blame it on Marilyn Manson. We'll blame it on this record company. But no. Not this big film. Which is funny now, think about it. Warner Brothers did that one as well. No. It's not connected to Matrix. Now, even if you type in Matrix Columbine, I mean, literally weeks apart, Matrix Columbine connected, there's not a single mention on the Wikipedia page for the Columbine Massacre. There's not a single mention of the word The Matrix. I did all this research last night. I didn't include it in the episode. Not a single mention of the word Matrix in the Columbine. Multiple references to Marilyn Manson. And you look and they go, no, they never saw The Matrix. We know they never saw The Matrix. Really? No, the biggest movie in America at the time, never saw it. People in trench coats walking around with machine guns, just blowing people. They didn't see it? That's what you're telling me? They never saw The Matrix. Everybody saw The Matrix. They reenacted it. Well, they were wearing trench coats way before The Matrix. Matrix didn't inspire them. They had bought the guns away. I don't think it was the final push, but I definitely think that you cannot tell me they did not see that movie and think, wow, that looks cool. It could have been the final push. It could have been something they had been planning for, but It's way too big of a coincidence. It's way too big of a coincidence. And I think there is a vested interest that if someone was always watching Chucky movies, like there's basically like one true crime associated with all those movies. There was the big, horrible torture case in Britain where they put the headphones on the girl and they played on repeat, "I'm Chucky, wanna play?" And then this heavy metal song would start, or this electro jungle song would start, whatever. It was called the Chucky Torture Room or whatever. You're going to usually find one murder that the guy was a huge fan of. Usually they'll say he's a huge fan of horror movies. You'll always see that. This guy was a huge fan of horror movies. Anyone did this. They're not specific, unless it's some like indie movie that nobody talks about. We talked about Severance earlier. That was a movie that I saw about a group of vacation getaway or a team building exercise with all these people from like this corporation. They come out. And it's also where the elite are hunting people. In that movie, a guy gets tied to a tree and set on fire. Well, a couple years later, there was a murder, I believe it was in Britain, where they tied a guy to a tree and set him on fire. And the person who did that loved the movie Severance. He loved that movie. And when watching that movie, apparently for the first time, he goes, "That looks so cool. That looks so cool." The scene where they're burnt, because the guy's tied up to the tree and he can't move and he's burning alive. It's like you're just watching it. And he ended up doing that a couple years later. That murder is connected to that movie. That's a super indie movie. I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. It's tragic that someone died over it, but I think that you have more murders connected to these movies, but you don't want that. You want the money from it, but you don't want the bad press. You cannot tell me that those guys did not watch The Matrix. I think right there that is false. That's not true. They watched The Matrix. Oh, God, I'm getting a headache now. They watched The Matrix. Oh, no, it's the CIA. They're in my head. They watched The Matrix. Imagine if the nickname for a Columbine was The Matrix Murders. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. The money is always going to... And I'm not saying that it's great to have catchy names for everything. But that's the way the media works. They come up with these catchy names and calling that the Joker killings or the Joker massacres. I mean, like, that's just the title of books. That's just it's a horrific tragedy, but these media outlets, they'll always exploit these tragedies unless it involves one of them, one of their big companies, and then, oh, we didn't have anything to do with it. Super weird, isn't it? Why am I even talking about... Oh, because we were talking about the memes. And I'm saying there's probably more people out there who have been killed because of horror movies. And I love horror movies. I'm not saying that. I think it's a very, very small amount of the overall murders in the world or in America. But I think it's more than just one person watched Halloween and went and stabbed someone. I'm sure if you looked into... When you read these articles and they go, he was a big fan of horror movies, they never mention which ones. They never mentioned that, yeah, he watched Scream 80 times. And they watched it the night before the murder. Brad... Now people are like, Sephora, Ari, thanks for swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving. Brad, have a great one. See you guys later. Yeah, photogenic, the Tide Pod thing, right? The Tide Pod, that was another thing Photogenic Hunt brought up about the Tide Pod. Tide Pod. Oh, and the Monkey says, I'd almost agree about my unhinged rant. He didn't use that word, but about the movies, he goes, well, what about video games? They don't get a pass when a mass shooting happens because they're not part of the media infrastructure. I mean, GTA makes more money than any movie ever made. And I think they almost make that much money a year. But it's a different group. Imagine like high school, right? You have your cliques and you'll have student body and then you have overlap with the jocks and with the like academic nerdy people, right? You'll kind of have this Venn diagram of that. The video game industry, even though they attend the same high school, they are the computer lab, right? The theater guys. They're kind of like a different group of people and they'll kind of intermingle with each other from time to time, but it's a different industry. It's the same thing, like you can have a conspiracy that involves the auto industry, and then that may in an also way start to involve the e-bike industry or the motorcycle industry, but it probably doesn't affect the boating industry. If you started having collusion between road vehicles like wheeled vehicles, road maintenance and stuff like that, you start to see a conspiracy. It probably doesn't affect boats. Does that make sense? Jason, you've clearly become unhinged. You can have media empires. They're technically media empires, but they're actually having some of them have more are more networked. So that's the reason why you don't see it as much anymore, but in the 60s, 70s, 80s, the media had no problem dumping everything on comic books. Because that was just a thing for kids, even though they eventually grew to being these huge gargantuan industries, and now they're bought by Warner Brothers and Disney, but you just dump all that stuff on them. Let's take a look here. Alonzo Hayes, I've been a huge fan of your podcast since the Book of Valis gave you a shout out. Book of Valis? Was that that might be another channel. What do you think of the Perestroika deception, the conspiracy that says the conspiracy that says the USSR is somehow still around? That wouldn't surprise me. I think that when you would have... I mean, the Soviet Union fell in my lifetime. Probably a lot of your lifetimes as well. Of course, I mean, Putin is old KGB. you would still have all those powers. Just like I was talking about in the beginning, the guy working in the office for 40 years knows more and has more connections than the guy who just got elected for 4 years. Like, that's just the way that it is. In the Soviet Union, when it collapsed, you still had bureaucrats who they weren't like, well, I guess I'm a farmer now. I lost my job in the government, and the government is dissolved. No, these people wheeled and dealed, and some of them became very, very wealthy oil oligarchs and things like that. It wouldn't surprise me if it just wasn't a name change, a new sign on the door. And I think you could probably see that with a lot of... this is where the whole idea of the Illuminati comes from, right? They go, well, the Illuminati stopped existing in the 17th century. Why are you even thinking about that? Well, because you go underground. The idea of the Fourth Reich in Germany, Operation Werewolf, where they said, well, we could have a guerrilla war with the Americans for the next 50 years, or we could just go underground and just pop back up at a certain time, not with guns, but with policies. You can even go back, I'm sure, there is a conspiracy theory, speaking with Philip K. Dick with Valis, that the Roman Empire never ended. It's just evolved. It's a new name. And you do have to wonder, like, what happened to all those riches, all those powerful people? I'm sure a lot of them got killed. Rome's getting sacked. It was pretty brutal, but I'm sure a lot of them also wheeled and dealed and got out of there. And they don't then go, well, I guess I'm a farmer now. No, you would continue to wield power in some way. I wouldn't be surprised if the USSR is still around. And you could take the identity of the USSR and even remove it from Russia, and they could go, let's just go to China. Let's just go to this other country, and we'll keep all of the same beliefs, the same power structure, but the best place to run the world is from behind the throne. So if you did have a bunch of Russian, because all those people in charge were walking out with the money while everything else was burning down, and then any country in the world would have let them in. Take them in. Let's see here. Yeah. Photogenic Hunt. I've never heard of that story. Photogenic Hunt says, remind me of that story you did. Wait, I did this one? About the guy who repeatedly watched the movie at the theater with some girl getting murdered and was caught masturbating, and then he recreated the crime? What? Well, I mean, that does sound like something insane I would cover, but I don't remember that story. I mean, again, we're like at 1,100 episodes. Let's take a look here. Valazor says, aren't the new Scream movies about that? Kind of. Man, I really like Scream 6, but Scream 7 was a lot like that. The guy had a museum, or the killers, I don't want to give it away, but there's always more than one killer. They had a museum of Scream memorabilia from the different murders, because there's the real-life murders in the movies, then there's also the Stab franchise in Scream. But anyways, it was a terrible movie, so I don't worry too much about it. Yeah, Maria Romero, I heard of the Chucky murder. I didn't know that they actually killed her. I mean, off the top of my head, I wasn't for sure. But yeah, that they were just brainwashed, just basically torturing her with Chucky music and then physically torturing her as well. I'm gonna have to pack up and head out soon. But let's take a look here. We'll maybe finish up with this. Guys, this has been really, really awesome. I always at the end of the live streams I start to kind of lose it, but it's been awesome. Brad Thunderpants. Oh, Jason just remembered a good question. How did you quit chewing tobacco? I'm working on it too right now. Well, I quit by... That sounds very pompous of me. I quit by moving to the lozenges. And then what happened is what I realized is I had a problem with just wanting to put stuff into my mouth. Right. That's really what I think. I'm looking for something. You're like, I don't know, what's Jason grabbing? So that was the thing, and that kind of makes sense, right? Obviously, because I'm heavyweight, overweight and everything like that. One of the things, this looks pretty beat up, but I would have this. This is fake chew. This particular type is called back off. So it's fake pouches, but they make fake people are like, this how you're ending it? Well, it's good advice. Like fake little pouches like this, right? That I buy this stuff off Amazon. Back Off is pretty good. They have other ones that have caffeine in them and stuff like that, but I think that's one of the reasons why I got AFib was because I was chewing on those full of caffeine. But anyways, I've used these, and then nicotine lozenges help a lot as well because I need to keep putting stuff in my mouth. It's not, man, I feel like I look tired. Just putting stuff in my mouth, feeling the sensation of something up there. Some of these, Back Off has a little bit of it. They have cayenne pepper in them. So it actually burns your lip. You're like, Jason, if you're recording, take that stupid thing out of your mouth. Gives you a little bit of burn. But then also nicotine lozenge is a good thing. Chewing tobacco is actually harder to quit than cigarettes because you can keep it in there all day long. Like, I would just put it at the top so I don't spit it out. See you later, cat cans. And so I would keep it in my mouth all day long as opposed to going outside, smoking a cigarette for 15 minutes and then going back inside. It's harder to get taken care of. I know it looks funny, but just like anything, this is what I use. I'll use... and I haven't chewed tobacco in years. I still just have this thing about putting... stuff in my mouth. Speaking of putting stuff in my mouth, I'm gonna have to go to eat soon. Johnny, have a great one. And yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of help, Brad. And I really appreciate everybody coming out to the Thanksgiving live stream special. It's been a crazy one. Like usual, I start to lose it and drone on and on as the podcast goes on. My brain stops working, but I'm so glad you guys are able to come out. Really, really appreciate it. Have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week for brand new episodes. Everyone, have a great one. Bye, no context. See you later, Fabio. See you later, Kelly. Bye, Sephora. All right. Why am I waving? That's so... I'm supposed to have my hands. Like this. Have a great one, guys. Bye, photogenic hunt. Bye, an idea guy. I think. Goodbye, Alessandro Ace. Goodbye, Master of Ellipses.